Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Thursday, February 1st. With earnings coming up, we need to check in on old Meta, see where it might go, and see what the chart looks like. So we're going to start here on the Webull side of things, then we'll flip over to the Think or Swim study, and we'll call it a video. So we're near tippy-toppy over here. Not quite, but we're close. Sort of having a hard time holding that $400 level at the moment. Tried to push through it the other day, fell through pretty hard, and picked up just ahead of this 184, 185 level. And then today, again, hitting a high of 449 cents. So once again, rejecting off of that 400. So what this means for earnings, I don't know. I would tend to think that if there's a strong positive reaction to earnings and it pushes through that 400 and gets some momentum in that direction, you might see some fireworks go off there. You might see a real strong push through. I don't know how heavy these other walls are going to be at about 403 and then obviously above 406. We'll see what those look like, but that would be the first thing I'd look for. And then if it does pull back, see if it can get support as early as this like 384.33 level. There are some other I don't want to say smaller levels, but just levels with less price action. In between here, I didn't put in every single little level because I didn't want it to look super cluttered. But I would say there's one here right around 390, which you would kind of expect, psychological-ish level. And again, if it does drop below this 384.33, I would say there's another level here around, I'd put it probably around here around 373 or so. But the next really strong level that I see, 353.81, so it's quite a steep drop. And then below that, 326.71, 288.37. There's another level here around 314. So like I said, these are just sort of some large signs along the highway, but there's going to be other ones that lie in between these levels that have some pretty big percentage gaps in between them. Now, one thing I never want to forget to mention on these earnings videos is that while I'm talking about, if it pushes up and it can get some motion above that 400, you might see it move through and sort of break down a bunch of walls, and who knows where it goes then. And same thing, I'm talking here about it coming down, maybe toward 350 even, or 380 something. It could certainly just go sideways. So we see, especially with a lot of these larger cap stocks, earnings can be so sort of formulaic and so sort of foreseeable that they're just sort of coming in, meeting expectations, and then it just becomes a question of what's the market sentiment around it, right? Do you get sort of an on par or decent earnings call, but folks are still sort of like, hey, this was $88 at the end of 2022. We've run it up over 400 as of late, and we're going to sort of punish an on par earnings call? Or, does some of the momentum that took it through all of those walls and through all of those milestones, does some of that momentum just carry forth and sort of is reflective of the general sentiment around the stock, and folks are excited to be buying in and still see some advantage to buying it at higher prices? We'll see what that looks like. But market sentiment versus the actual nuts and bolts of the call can sometimes feel like two different things. So always want to sort of keep that in mind as well. Now, on the Think or Swim side of things, we had a trigger and fire back here. You see this decent trigger while it was pinned to the mid-range of the channel, and then fire, and it set off this, initially a counter move, and then, the real move came in and it just really brought that puppy up. So for the time being, it's not re-triggering yet on the daily chart, and we'll see if that starts to take shape at all. And to my mind, the setups that I look for, I'm kind of glad that it's not triggering at the moment. I prefer something triggering when it's at the mid-range of the channel. That's just, from the charts that I've looked at and that I continue to look at, that just seems to make more sense to me. I can sort of foresee the move coming a little bit easier. And so if it were to be triggering when it's way up here, it's a little bit tougher to decipher, at least for me. Now, it has spent quite a bit of time outside of the upper bound of the channel recently, sort of toying with the channel at the moment, seeming to get a little bit of buying pressure on the green wave cloud. I would typically, I'd tend to think that means that there could be some additional bullish momentum that needs to be exhausted. That said, with earnings being such a big catalyst, that can throw all of this askew, right? And something that would typically mean, maybe there's more bullish momentum to be exhausted here, that could be thrown completely to the side if folks don't digest the earnings call well. That said, if it were to come down to it and test the mid-range of the channel, right now it's sitting about 379. This channel is dynamic, so it changes as candles get put in. So we'll see where that mid-range is situated in the coming days, but right now it's right about there. So eventually, I look for it to come in and test the mid-range like we saw here, right? It was popping out a little bit, came in and tested, here it popped out a little bit, tried to ride the wave cloud and came down and tested here. So anytime it leaves the lower bound or the upper bound, look for it to come in and test the mid-range at some point in time. Now, whether it pulls the channel up in order to re-engage with it, or whether the price action comes down to re-engage with it, those can also look like two very different things. So we'll just sort of need to see how that goes. But for the time being, it is trying its darndest to hang on while it's obviously not putting in a huge move, knowing that earnings is imminent, and it's just kind of waiting around to say, okay, where are we going here? But a couple of very top heavy wick candles at the moment from the last couple of days. We'll see if that persists or not. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week has been going well, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.